Thank you to my panel, Allison and Mary, today. It was a few months back that Allison and we had a conversation, and the word weight came up. And Allison thought it might be really good if we looked at the subject of weight. And I totally agreed with her, because some people are content and happy with their weight. I've got a friend, she is bigger than some ladies, and she's happy at being the weight she is, because she said to me, I like my food, I enjoy my food, and that is fine. And we're not here to condemn anybody today whatsoever, but it is good to talk about and air these issues, isn't it? And there are some people who say are in other countries who are trying to lose weight. And in some countries, there is the problem where they do not get much food. And that is a very sad situation. Now, let's say then that there are some people who are happy with their weight, even if they are larger than average. As I said, we don't want to condemn these people in any way, because this today is a very sensitive issue for some people. But there are people who do want to lose weight, and the medical profession, they tell us to be careful of what we eat, and they encourage us to exercise. But we also get the slimmer magazines that abound everywhere. And we find that actors and actresses and models are stick thin. Now, I have a few friends who have had anorexia nervosa. And I remember that two of them pulled through well. So do you think then that the media, maybe our friends, and even the medical profession lay too much stress on our BMI, which is our body mass index, you know, that healthy weight, and the way that we look? What do you think, Mary?
Right, yeah. Well, obesity is a big issue, isn't it, really, for the
Yes.
West, for America and Britain. My cholesterol's high, so I'm always, careful now is what I eat. I try and eat the good healthy fats like salmon and vegetables and stuff like that. But sometimes you fancy something sweet, sometimes you want something else, and we can't live so rigidly that we don't eat. Because I found my mother, because she had a thyroid issue which made her put on weight. She was forever on a diet, so she was forever losing weight and then gaining it again, and forever feeling unhappy really with the way she was, unless she was a certain weight. For me, I was always very skinny as a child, and it wasn't until I was in my teenage years that I started, for no apparent reason except a breakup and a romantic breakup, I started to put on weight. And I'll tell you a bit more about that later maybe, but yes, certainly the medical profession has to bring it to our attention. But I think everybody on television, everybody in films tends to be the perfect weight, don't they?
Yes.
And then you have to live up to that ideal. And if you're conscious of the way you look, because when I started to put on weight, I started to be very conscious. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin because I didn't fit, my jeans didn't fit anymore. And I just wasn't happy with the way I looked. So I ended up with eating problems because of that.
Okay.
Because I'd always, so yeah.
Alison, what's your take on this?
Well, it's very interesting. I'm in New York City right now for my son's birthday, and so we've been walking everywhere, and I've been watching people as we've been walking, and I don't know if it's just since COVID, but I think people are thicker than they were.
Yes.
Like, people are stronger in a good way. And I think that society is beginning to change, but all of us on this little podcast thing, we grew up with the image of Twiggy, and it was the Twiggy, the stick thin figure that is branded, like almost like tattooed into our brain, that this is the ideal, but it's not the reality. And I think in terms of what we really need to do, like you said, we're not shaming people for where they're at. And hopefully if it wouldn't interest someone, they wouldn't be listening to this. But we're really here to talk about for people that aren't happy with where they're at, maybe people who have struggled. And I'm not talking about an eating disorder situation, but I am an addictionologist, and so that definitely plays into my thinking. So this is really for people, in my understanding, that actually want to find a different way. And maybe we're not happy. Maybe we live for years not happy, but we're here for hope. And the fact that each and every one of us has had a journey to where we're at today, and not a one of us is in the hopeless place that we were maybe some years ago.
So do you think being too big puts stress on our bodies if we are overweight? Do you think it can cause problems later, like with diabetes and things like that? What's your take, ladies? Mary?
Yes, I think it does. I was always astounded with my mother. She was always quite hefty, even though she was on thyroxine at the end. And she ate loads and loads of sugar and cakes and things, and she never got diabetes, which is wonderful. So it's your genetic makeup as well.
Yes.
It depends, what you're going to get. I mean, my issues were, God sorted all those out. So I'm fine now. I'm 20 pounds heavier because of COVID, but I don't mind now, because I'm at that age anyway, where it looks better if you put on a bit of weight. But if you're unhappy with your weight and you want to change it, sometimes it's not that easy to lose weight. Even if you exercise at a certain age, they say it doesn't make any difference. It's what you eat rather than how much you exercise. You can't lose it just by exercising. And some people are addicted to exercise, aren't they? Because they want to keep the low weight. So there's a huge amount of psychological issues going on with weight if you're sensitive to it. And some people don't mind, and I think that's great. Like Dawn French, wonderful woman, lovely, very attractive. I just think we should be happy where we are, really, and not stress so much about it. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah. Now,
I was always skinny, so.
You were skinny, yeah. You're slim now. Now,
no,
Allison,
I'm not now.
Now, Allison, you're a nice normal weight. Have you ever gained weight? Have you ever been big?
Totally. I was at least myself. I was two of me at one point.
Wow.
But I just need to say, you asked about weight and disease. I have done a lot of research on this subject, and you can have the genetic predisposition for certain diseases, but sometimes what you feed your body chooses whether you turn that disease on or not.
Yes.
And sugar is a big one. I'm not saying never have sugar, but there are different sources of sugar. So I think we can be genetically predisposed to many diseases, but the way we nourish our bodies chooses whether we turn on or not, whether we feed disease or we feed health in our body. But back to your question, yes, I was trying to do the math because it's different. I was probably 23 stone at one point.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's 23 stone, like about 260 pounds, something like that.
Okay.
And so that's me plus me, two of us sitting side by side. And it has been a long and difficult journey. It's been a journey of much self-hatred. And I think my journey to whatever freedom that I found in this area has been one of keep coming back to Jesus, to depending on him, and it's been a God journey.
Okay.
That's all I can honestly say. To the God that loves us and never gives up on us, to the God that doesn't love me any more 135 pounds than he did at 260 pounds. He loves us, and that doesn't change. That's the good news.
Yeah.
But I believe he wants us at optimal health. And so how do we get there?
Yeah, of course. And I think, like you said, God gives us hope. I think that was a really good way of putting it. So, Alison, you mentioned about self-hate, basically. Tell us a bit more about that. Did you reject yourself?
Well, I think when we fall into food, and most of us listening or participating have fallen into food, it's like a great big vat that we can't get out of. And we're trying to eat our way out of the vat. And we are so busy eating and maybe crying and maybe self-recriminating. Oh, you fat. This is what I said to myself. The self-hate, the wickedness, because we wouldn't talk to someone else like this. And I think we need to look, okay, how are we talking to ourselves? Are we talking ourselves into the pit, or are we climbing the ladder out of it with Jesus?
Yeah, that's so...
I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I think you have there. You know, Jesus can help us with those issues that we have. And I think we are wanting, if we want to lose weight, we will lose it because we will do something about it. You know, you do have to do something about it. Now, we know that being overweight can put excess pressure, shall we say, on your joints, and it can put a strain on your joints, and you can't move so easily. So that's going to be uncomfortable. Now, Mary, you had the opposite, didn't you? Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, I was just always very slim. And it wasn't till my teenage years, when I had this emotional problem, that I started putting on weight. And it was really distressing for me. I didn't hate myself. I just didn't fit my clothes. And it wasn't me. When I looked in the mirror, that's not, you know, I didn't feel comfortable in myself. So I wanted to lose weight, but I didn't do it the normal way. I ended up with this eating problem, you know, Princess Diana's type thing. And God healed me of that later on. But I mean, that can cause horrendous problems. And I know there are people out there that aren't happy with their weight, that are using those methods to try and lose it. Rather than go on a diet, they will fall into food, as Allison was saying, and she's so true. It is a vat you can't get out of, and they just they don't know what to do about it, so they just get rid of the food, and it's an endless cycle of you can harm your esophagus, you can do all sorts of problems, you know, and it's the body image thing that's put out there on the adverts and in the films, you know, and people just want to be the right way. And if you've got that kind of a problem, although you don't hate yourself, you want to be thinner, and if you haven't got the self-control, as plainly I didn't have, then you will resort to other methods. And I think a lot of girls do that. A lot of, I mean, I know several. I mean, I can think of 4 or 5 that I've realised had that problem. Because if you've been through it yourself, then you can feel for them.
Yeah, of course you can. I mean, when you think that somebody has anorexia nervosa, you know, I mean, I think the first thing is you really do need to get medical help. And, you know, because that person will barely eat. And really, it's a distortion, isn't it? And that's very sad. It's a distortion, you know, and yet how do you get over something like that? It is one of the hardest things and battles to get over, apparently, that I read.
It
And
is, yeah. And there's such a lot of emotion in it. That's the thing. There's anger, there's grief, it's all of that. And it turns into this either loathing of food or fear of eating it,
yeah,
or you eat it and then get rid of it. It's just, that's the lazy way, I suppose, of doing it. But it's the same problem, really. It's
but
just the other side of the coin.
don't you think it's a misuse of your body as well?
Yeah, absolutely. But you don't think of it that, because you're trying to get to be the right way. And
Yes.
I don't know what God did, but he got rid of that from me.
Yeah. Well, you look
that's
lovely and
amazing.
healthy.
Well, yeah, I am. I mean, I'm about 10 kilos overweight, but I don't, that doesn't bother me, because I think at my age that's fine.
Yeah.
My BMI is just about on the cusp of normal.
Yeah.
Tiny bit overweight, but yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I really feel for people who are desperately trying to lose weight and just can't do it.
That's
And
right.
it's what it does to your mind more than anything. There's just no peace around it. And then the thing that sustains us, the food that sustains us, that God's provided for us, we don't enjoy anymore. I mean, that's awful, isn't it? Because he's provided all this lovely stuff for us to, different flavors and fruits and vegetables, and even cake in moderation is fine, and sugar. I agree with you, Alison, it's very bad for your immune system as well, but in moderation. God's provided so much.
I think we can get into a very self-destructive cycle, and we fall into food. Some of us fall into food. We feel like a failure, which makes us feel bad. So what do? Instead of finding Jesus, we feed the feelings. Instead, we need to feel our feelings. We need to find our way to the cross, instead of doing what we're often doing, is from food to failure, feeling bad, to feeding the feelings. But we need to interrupt the cycle. For those of us who are experienced in cyclical behavior of any kind, there are definite stages in our process. So we may have something bad happen to us. What do? Someone offends us. What do? We on the way home, we walk past a donut store, and maybe we take 3 donuts, maybe we take 5. Anyone that's suffered in a massive way knows what it is to finish a packet of biscuits plus, and then be still looking, because we're feeding a hunger that only Jesus can satisfy.
Yeah, Jesus can help us, can't he, with those issues that we have. We can take them to the Lord and we can pray about them, but it is a doing as well. It is an action, isn't it? You have to take action.
It's also a physical thing. I mean, honestly, hormones can make you put on weight. Insulin makes you hungry. So if you've got a lot of insulin coursing through your body, you will be hungry and you will want food, not because you're angry at anybody, not because you hate yourself, not because, so that it's so complicated. Everything Alison says is absolutely right, but there's other reasons why, physical reasons, medical reasons why we put on weight as well, and why we eat more, because hormonal changes can make you hungrier. It's a really difficult thing. And as Alison says, there's only one solution really, and that's Jesus going to the cross. But what do these girls do that haven't got him? It's okay for us, we've got him, but there's many people out there that haven't got him and don't know what to do. So I suppose then it's our job to take them to meet him, take them to the cross.
Would you agree, Alison?
Oh, absolutely. I think primarily the people listening to this are looking for a spiritual answer, and we're excuse me, only gonna find our needs to be met in Jesus. And I have to say that if we're struggling with these things, we're looking for solutions, and they're not all good solutions. Starvation is not a good solution. Crazy dieting is not a good solution. One of the things that I tried in my desperation, I spiritualized the problem. And one of the things I did was I do 40+ day fasts. And I was looking for sin. And I was looking for something that God didn't have for me. And so we can spiritualize this, but it really is about our spirit. Who are we going to let nourish us deep within? And then the other thing, I did Christian diets. And one of them said, oh, eat everything, eat whatever you want, but just eat a little bit of it. But the problem is, as someone who is probably a closet sugar addict, I wanted cheesecake. So that's what I ate for a few months. And so, to be truthful, moderation isn't for everyone. The problem is we have to have food. We have to eat. And so because we have to eat, we need to find God's path for us through this. Whether it's pain-based, whether it's a physical thing, I believe that many physical injuries can be healed by the power of food, the God-given nourishment, that when we nourish our cells properly, our cells begin to function properly.
My mother had no idea of what moderation was. She was told by her doctor that you can eat anything. If it's fruit or vegetables, you can eat as much as you like. She wanted bananas. So she ate about 3 pounds of bananas in a sitting. So, you know, that's the sort of thing that happens if you haven't got any self-control. You will just eat.
Do you think there is enough education and information out there for people? What's your thoughts?
I think there's too much. There's so much. I mean, there is a philosophy for everyone's taste. But is that going to feed your body? Not sure. I seriously think the answer for this whole dilemma is, you know, how scripture says, confess your faults to one another and you will be healed. If you're bothered about this, it's an issue for you. If you're bothered about this, this is something that either you say, Lord, is this bothering you? One time I felt to ask him how much he wanted me to weigh. And I thought, wow, I'll never weigh that. I thought he wanted me to weigh, but it was half of what I was weighing. And I honestly went lower than what I asked Jesus I should weigh. And I wasn't happy here. So it's really, we can really come to Jesus, Lord, what's your will for my weight? And how do you want me to get there? And then I believe you need to bring another person into your journey, because if you have, and of course, Mary rightly pointed out, it's not an addiction for everybody, but for the people, I'll talk to the people that it is a driving force in their life. And there's many of us that is true, that it's sort of like an unrecognized addiction sometimes. We need to get someone as an accountability partner to walk out the journey with us. And that takes a special person. There are some good groups out there. Some of them are a bit radical. Like there's some Christian groups, and people can find me on Facebook and ask me what they are. Some of them say no sugar ever, forever. And some people just with their integrity can't agree to that. That's a difficult one to agree to. So we need help along the way, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I would totally agree with that. We can go to our GP for help. There are slimming clubs, and like you say, we can be accountable to somebody as well. So, okay, well, let's bring in the scriptures now, because it says in 1 Peter 3 verses 3 and 4, your beauty should come from outward adornment. such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes, but from the inner disposition of your heart, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in God's sight. So what does it matter if we're too large or too slim? Isn't it a gentle spirit that counts? What's your thoughts, Allison?
Absolutely. I'm still working on that one. I'm a work in progress. What
A work in progress. Well, that's good. A work in progress. Have you much to say about that one?
Me?
Okay, Mary, let's go to you.
Oh, I didn't know who you were talking. Yeah. No, I agree entirely. It is a gentle spirit. That is the most important thing. But that comes from Jesus himself, doesn't it? So the more we are close to God and are filled with his spirit, the more we will demonstrate those things. And I think then you stop focusing on these things. You don't focus on your weight anymore. You don't focus on food anymore. You don't focus on these outward things anymore. You're focusing on him. And as you focus on him, he lifts you up out of any pit you happen to be in. I think the more we get close to him, the more we will be healed.
Yes.
And I think if really some things bother us that don't bother him. And I think it's a very real thing to say, Father, is this bothering you? And if it's not bothering Jesus, then don't let it bother you. But if it is, then it's time for action.
Yeah, you got a good point there as well. So, I mean, I think God loves beauty. I do, because we know that he made creation. I love seeing the colourful birds and the lovely colours of the blackberries and fruit and things like that. And we know that our body, as we get older particular, does fade. But the Lord wants us to have our heart that is beautiful. And I think that is very important to the Lord. Now, I like to look nice on my husband, Paul, but I don't think this verse means that we can't wear makeup or perfume or things like that. But I think it's putting a point that inner beauty is better because it's more attractive. And I think the Lord does like that gentle and quiet spirit. Can I say thank you to my panel for part 1 today, and you'll be joining me next week for part 2. Thank you, Mary and Allison. Thank you.
Thank you.